John Carter stood before the Galactic Consortium, his back straight despite the weight on his shoulders. The fate of all humanity rested on his words today. Thousands of alien eyes stared down at him from the curved walls of the Great Chamber. Humans have shown nothing but a desire for peace since we joined the galactic community, John said. His voice echoed through the vast room. We ask only for the chance to prove ourselves worthy allies. A tall, blue-skinned alien named Zarvex rose from the center of the High Council table. His four eyes narrowed as he looked down at John. We have reviewed the history of your species, Zarvex said. His voice was cold and flat. Wars, destruction, violence. Your kind are too dangerous to join our peaceful society. Murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber. John tried to speak again, but Zarvex raised a hand to silence him. The decision is made. All humans will be exiled to Terminus, a planet on the edge of known space. You will be given basic supplies and minimal technology to survive. This session is ended. The sound of the gavel echoed like a death knell. 2 weeks later, the first prison ships entered orbit around Terminus. Through the viewport, Lisa Bennett saw only shades of gray and brown. No blue oceans or green forests like Earth. Just endless rocky plains and dark mountains under swirling storm clouds. It doesn't look very welcoming, she said to Paul Wright, who stood beside her. Paul's face was grim. That's the point. They're not expecting many of us to survive. Lisa clutched her small bag of personal items tighter. Inside were her most precious possessions: a notebook, some pens, and a small microscope she had smuggled aboard. As a biologist, she knew her skills would be needed if they were to have any chance on this new world. The landing was rough. Terminus had higher gravity than Earth, and the ship's system struggled to compensate. When the doors finally opened, the first thing Lisa noticed was the air, thick, heavy, and carrying strange scents she couldn't identify. The second thing she noticed was the sky. Dark purple clouds raced overhead and lightning flashed in the distance. Everyone move quickly, shouted Steve Harmon, a former construction worker who had taken charge during the journey. We need to set up shelter before that storm hits us. The colonists worked frantically to assemble the prefabricated buildings they had been given. The pieces didn't fit together properly, and Lisa soon realized why. These parts are defective, Paul said, examining a wall section. They've been designed to fail. A bitter laugh escaped him. The consortium really wants us dead. They managed to build 3 rough shelters before the storm hit. The wind howled like a living thing, and rain fell in sheets so heavy they stung the skin. Lightning struck so close that Lisa felt her hair stand on end. Inside the largest shelter, Steve called a meeting of anyone with useful skills. Lisa introduced herself as a biologist. Paul was an engineer. Amanda Ross was a doctor with military experience. We need to know what we're dealing with, Steve said. Lisa, as soon as the storm passes, I want you to start cataloging the local plants and animals. See if anything is edible. Paul, figure out what we can salvage from these broken supplies. Amanda, set up a medical area. The storm lasted 3 days. When it finally ended, Lisa ventured outside with a small group of volunteers. The landscape had changed, new rivers had formed, and strange formations of rocks stood where flat ground had been before. The weather must always be like this, Lisa said. The whole planet is constantly being reshaped. They hadn't gone far when they found the first signs of life, small 6-legged creatures that burrowed into the ground when approached. Lisa carefully caught one in a container. It looks like a cross between a beetle and a crab, she said, studying it. The shell is hard, possibly as an adaptation to the gravity and storms. Further exploration revealed patches of purple vegetation growing in sheltered valleys. When Lisa tried to take a sample, her hands began to burn and blister. Toxic, she said, washing her hands in a stream. We'll need gloves to handle anything that grows here. On their way back to the settlement, they heard a low growl. Something was watching them from the rocks above, a large animal with 6 limbs and a mouthful of teeth. Its fur was the same gray as the stones, making it nearly invisible until it moved. Back away slowly, whispered Amanda, who had come with them. Her hand moved to a knife at her belt. No sudden movements. The creature watched them with yellow eyes, then disappeared among the rocks. "I'm calling those hellcats," said one of the colonists, his voice shaking. "Did you see the size of those teeth?" By the end of the first week, they had established a routine. Exploration teams went out during the calm periods between storms. Paul worked to fix their equipment. Amanda treated injuries and illness in a medical area set up in one of the ships. The first death came when a storm blew in faster than expected, catching an exploration team in the open. The second and third deaths were from allergic reactions to the local plants. By the end of the first month, they had lost 15 people. Then winter came. Lisa had never experienced cold like this. The temperature dropped so low that metal cracked and shattered. Ice formed inside their shelters despite the heaters running constantly. Food supplies dwindled as hunting became impossible in the blizzards. "We need protein," Amanda told the colony leadership one night. "People are showing signs of malnutrition." Steve looked at the maps they had drawn. "There's a network of caves 3 miles east. The hellcats use them as dens. If we could take one down." The hunting party left before dawn. Steve led them, along with Amanda and 6 others. They carried makeshift spears and the few working laser cutters they had salvaged. They returned 12 hours later, dragging the body of a hellcat. 3 hunters didn't return at all. As Amanda butchered the creature, she made a discovery. "The muscle density is incredible," she said. "It must be an adaptation to the high gravity." That night they had their first real meal in weeks. The meat was tough but nourishing. Lisa saved samples of everything, blood, bone, tissue, to study later. 3 months into their exile, Lisa noticed something strange. Despite the harsh conditions, many colonists were getting stronger, not weaker. Muscles seemed denser, reflexes quicker. "The air," she explained to Steve and Amanda after running tests. "It contains trace elements not found on Earth. Our bodies are adapting, becoming denser to handle the gravity." "So the planet is changing us," Steve said thoughtfully. "Yes," Lisa replied. "And I think that might be the only reason we're going. To survive this place." As if to challenge her words, the sensors they had placed outside began to wail. The worst storm yet was approaching from the north. Steve looked at the tired faces around him. "We've made it this far," he said. "We'll survive. This too." As the wind began to howl outside, Lisa looked down at her notes. Humans were adapting faster than she would have thought possible. If they could survive this first year, they might actually have a chance. Not just to survive, but to thrive. The consortium had made a serious mistake. 5 years had passed since the first humans landed on Terminus. What had begun as a scattered collection of broken shelters had grown into 3 major settlements. The largest, New Hope, sat in a valley sheltered by mountains on 3 sides. Stone and metal buildings now stood where tents had once fluttered in the endless storms. Kate Miller walked through her greenhouse, checking the rows of plants. When she had first started trying to grow food on Terminus, everything had died. The soil was wrong, the light was wrong, the rain was poison. But Kate had not given up. "The tomatoes are looking good," she said to her assistant, "and the modified corn is almost ready for harvest." Kate had discovered how to remove the toxins from local plants, making them safe for humans to eat. She had also brought earth crops and slowly changed them to survive on Terminus. The greenhouse was her greatest success, a place where both earth plants and Terminus plants could grow together. Outside, children played in a field. They ran and jumped with amazing speed and strength. All of them had been born on Terminus, and they were different from their parents. Taller, stronger. Their bones and muscles had developed under the heavy gravity of their new home. "They're going to be giants when they grow up," said Alan Martinez, watching them from beside Kate. Alan had been a soldier on Earth. Now he made weapons for hunting and defense on Terminus. "Not just bigger," Kate said. "Faster. Smarter too, I think. Their brains are getting more oxygen because of how our blood has changed to carry more." Alan nodded. "The consortium thought this place would kill us. Instead, it's making us better, alright?" Loud alarm sounded from the center of the settlement. It was not the weather alarm or the predator alarm. This was different. Alan and Kate ran toward the main building. Inside, Steve Harmon stood with Lisa Bennett and Paul Wright around a table with maps and equipment. They had been the leaders of the settlement since the beginning. "What's happening?" Alan asked. "Greg's team found something," Steve said. Greg, Wilson was the head of the mining crews that dug into the mountains for metals and building materials. The door opened and Greg rushed in, his face excited. He carried a box which he set carefully on the table. Inside were strange blue-black rocks that seemed to glow from within. "We found these in the deep mine," Greg said. "They're like nothing I've ever seen before. When we brought them up, all of our equipment started acting strange. Some things that had stopped working years ago suddenly turned on by themselves." Diane Foster, who studied energy and physics, picked up one of the rocks carefully. "These are giving off some kind of energy field," she said. "It's affecting our technology." "Can we use them?" Steve asked. Always practical, always thinking of survival. "Maybe," Diane said. "Let me run some tests." 3 days later, they had their answer. The strange minerals could generate and store massive amounts of energy. Diane had connected a small piece to a burned-out power cell, and it had recharged completely in minutes. "This changes everything," Paul said when they met again. "With these minerals, we can power all the technology the consortium thought would fail here. We might even be able to improve it." "There's something else," Lisa added. "I've studied our colony records and the consortium's files that we managed to download before they exiled us. As far as I can tell, these minerals don't exist anywhere else in known space. That's why they sent us here. They never thought we'd discover them or live long enough to use them if we did." The room grew quiet as everyone understood what this meant. Terminus was not just a prison. It was a treasure chest that the consortium had locked and thrown away the key. "We need to be careful," Steve said finally. "If the consortium realizes what we've found, they'll come back. And not to rescue us." "They're already watching," Paul told them. He pointed to a screen showing orbital data. "There's a stealth satellite in high orbit. Been there about 6 months. We've been pretending not to notice it. So we keep building, but we hide the important work," Steve decided. "They'll see our settlements growing, but not what we're really doing." Over the next 5 years, the humans of Terminus worked with a new purpose. On the surface, they built better homes, expanded their farms, and improved their hunting tools. Any observers would see only a primitive colony struggling to survive. But deep in the mountains, hidden from watching eyes, they built something more. Diane and her team learned to shape the miracle minerals into power sources stronger than anything the consortium had. Alan's weapons group created energy weapons that could cut through the toughest materials. Paul led engineers who rebuilt and improved the colony ships that had brought them to Terminus. And the people themselves continued to change. 10 years after Exile, a human born on Earth could run faster, lift more, and endure longer than any human in history. They needed less sleep. They healed from injuries in days instead of weeks. Their skin had thickened to resist the toxic plants and harsh weather. But the children born on Terminus were something else entirely. Their bodies had never known Earth's gentle gravity or clean air. From birth, they had developed to thrive in this harsh world. Leah Davis, who studied genetics and human biology, documented the changes. "It's evolution happening right before our eyes," she explained to the Colony Council. "Not just our muscles and bones getting stronger. Our DNA is changing to better survive here." "Are we still human?" someone asked. "We're what humans become. When pushed to our limits," Leah answered. "We're what we always could have been." The colonies grew and worked together more closely. Leaders from all 3 major settlements signed the Terminus Compact, agreeing to share resources and knowledge. They were no longer desperate refugees. They were becoming a civilization. In the 15th year, their instruments detected a new ship entering orbit. It was larger than the observation satellite, and soon it began to descend toward the surface. Frank Gordon, who led the security teams, called an emergency meeting. "Consortium research vessel," he reported. "They're landing near the eastern settlement. Their signals say they've come to study the declining human population. They expect to find us dying out. Steve, now older but still their leader, smiled grimly. Let's give them a proper welcome then. But remember, they can't know about the minerals or what we've built. As far as they know, we're simple survivors who got lucky. The humans of Terminus, prepared to meet their visitors knowing that the future of their new world would depend on what happened next. The consortium was about to discover their terrible mistake. The consortium research vessel landed in a flat area near the eastern settlement. 6 aliens stepped out, wearing heavy protective suits. They moved carefully, as if expecting attack from all sides. Their equipment scanned constantly for threats. Frank, Gordon led a small group to meet them. He had been a police officer on Earth before the Exile. Now he was in charge of security for all the human settlements on Terminus. Frank looked ordinary enough, until you noticed how he moved with unusual speed and grace, or how the fabric of his simple clothes stretched tight over muscles that no Earth human could have developed. "Welcome to Terminus," Frank said when they were close enough. "We weren't expecting visitors." The lead alien seemed surprised to hear clear speech instead of desperate pleas for help. Its translator device hummed before it replied. "We are a scientific team sent to study the final stages of human presence on this world," the alien said. "Our models predicted your extinction within 10 years of settlement, yet some of you still survive." Frank smiled. "More than some. We have over 2,000 people now across 3 settlements." The aliens looked at each other in what seemed like confusion. "Impossible," said the lead researcher. "Our records show only 1,000 were exiled here, and this planet cannot support advanced life. The gravity, the storms, the predators. We adapted," Frank said simply. "Would you like to see?" The aliens followed Frank's group back to the settlement. Their surprise grew with each step. Instead of desperate survivors huddled in ruins, they saw organized streets, solid buildings, and healthy humans going about their daily work. Children played in a protected area, lifting weights that would challenge adult aliens. Gardens grew food both from Earth and from modified Terminus plants. The walls showed marks from storms and predator attacks, but they stood strong. "This is not possible," one of the aliens said again. Frank introduced the aliens to Steve Harmon and the other settlement leaders at a meeting in the main hall. The researchers asked many questions about how humans had survived. "The first year was the hardest," Steve admitted. "We lost many people, but we learned. We changed. The children born here are stronger than we ever were on Earth." "And your technology?" one alien asked, pointing to the lights and heating systems. "These systems should have failed years ago." Paul Wright shrugged. "We're good at fixing things. Necessity is the mother of invention, as we say." The aliens talked among themselves in their own language. Then their leader turned back to the humans. "We wish to study your adaptation processes more closely. One of our team will remain here while the others report back to the consortium." After discussion, the humans agreed. 5 of the aliens returned to their ship, but one stayed behind. His name was Zil-Nar, and he seemed truly fascinated by humans. "Your species is remarkable," Zil-Nar told Lisa Bennett as she showed him around the biology labs. "No other known race could adapt so quickly to such hostile conditions." "We've always been good at surviving where we shouldn't," Lisa said. "It's what humans do." Over the next few days, Zil-Nar learned more about the human settlements. The aliens had expected to find the last few humans dying out. Instead, they found a growing civilization. But the humans were careful. They showed Zil-Nar only what they wanted him to see. The special minerals remained hidden. The advanced weapons and technology stayed in their secret mountain bases. As far as Zil-Nar knew, humans had simply adapted their bodies to survive, while maintaining only basic technology. A week after the research ship left, Zil-Nar asked for a private meeting with the settlement leaders. "I must warn you," he said, his large eyes solemn. "The consortium will not be pleased by your success here." "Why would they care if we live or die?" Steve asked. "Because Terminus was supposed to be your prison and your grave," Zil-Nar said. "The consortium did not exile you only because they feared your violent nature. They also wanted this world for themselves. What's so special about Terminus? Frank asked, pretending not to know. Zilnar hesitated, then said, There are minerals here that exist nowhere else in known space. Minerals with unique energy properties. The consortium planned to harvest them after your species died out. The humans exchanged glances. How long do we have? Steve asked. The research ship will reach the nearest consortium base in 2 months. After they report, I believe the consortium will send ships to remove you. They will not risk leaving humans here any longer. Why are you telling us this? Lisa asked. You're betraying your own people. Zilnar's skin changed color slightly, a sign of emotion. I have studied many species across the galaxy. None have been treated as unfairly as humans, and none have shown such remarkable ability to overcome challenges. I believe your species deserves the right to determine its own fate. That night, after Zilnar had gone to his quarters, the human leaders met again in their most secure room, deep underground. We need to prepare, Steve said, not just to defend ourselves, but to show the consortium they can't push us around anymore. Nicole Harper, who had been planning defense strategies for years, spread out her maps. We have about 50 days before they could arrive with a battle force. That's not much time. The shield system is nearly ready, Paul reported. With the mineral power sources, we could protect all 3 settlements from orbital attacks. And our ships? Steve asked. We have 12 fully functional ships hidden in the mountain hangars, Frank said. 5 more nearly ready. Not much against a consortium battle fleet, but they don't know we have them. Steve looked around at the faces of his friends and fellow leaders. When they had first landed on this world, they had been frightened exiles, struggling to survive. Now they were something else, something new and powerful. Send word to all settlements, Steve said. It's time to bring everything out of hiding. Every weapon, every ship, every piece of technology we've built. And I want to meet all the young people who've been training for space operations. 3 days later, Tyler Brooks stood before the council. He was 23 years old, born just after the Exile. He had never known Earth. His body had developed from birth under the harsh conditions of Terminus, making him stronger and faster than any human in history. His mind was quick, his voice clear and confident. You're asking for volunteers to meet with the consortium fleet? Tyler asked. Yes, Steve said. We need someone who can speak for all humans on Terminus, someone born here, who represents what we've become. I'll do it, Tyler said without hesitation. My father was a diplomat before the Exile. He taught me what he knew. As the settlements prepared for the coming confrontation, Zilnar watched, with growing amazement. The humans revealed more of their true progress, the energy weapons, the shield technology, the hidden ships. Things no primitive survival colony should have been able to build. You already knew about the special minerals, Zilnar said to Lisa when he saw their power systems. We found them years ago, she admitted. We just didn't want your people to know that. Zilnar stared at the glowing blue mineral powering an entire settlement systems. The consortium made a terrible mistake, he said quietly. They didn't exile you to a Deathworld. They gave you a world that would make you stronger than they could imagine. 52 days after the research ship left, the sensors hidden in orbit around Terminus detected multiple ships entering the system. The consortium had sent a battle group, 8 large warships with weapons ready. They're not here to talk, Frank said as the settlement leaders watched the ships approach on their screens. Those are destroyer-class vessels, Steve nodded grimly. Time to show them who we've become. Start the shield systems. All across the 3 settlements. Hidden. Generators powered by the special minerals hummed to life. A shimmer spread across the sky as the planetary defense shield activated. In the mountain bases, human crews prepared their own ships for launch. In orbit, the consortium fleet took position. Their communication system activated, broadcasting to the planet below. Attention human survivors. This is Commander Draz Kor of the Galactic Consortium Fleet. You have illegally established permanent settlements on Terminus, a restricted world. You will surrender immediately and prepare for relocation. Tyler Brooks stood in the communication center, ready to respond. At 23, He had never known any home but Terminus. His body was a product of this harsh world, tall, strong, and adapted to survive where other species would quickly die. This is Tyler Brooks, representing the United Human Settlements of Terminus. We reject your demand. We were sent here to die, but instead, we have made this world our home. We claim Terminus by right of survival. There was a long pause before the consortium commander responded. You have 1 hour to reconsider before we begin orbital bombardment. They're scanning us, Paul reported, watching the sensor readings. Looking for targets. Let them look, Nicole said from her position at the defense controls. They're about to get a surprise. 1 hour later, the consortium ships opened fire. Energy weapons powerful enough to level mountains struck the planetary shield and stopped. The shield glowed brightly, but held firm. Shield holding at 97% capacity, Nicole reported calmly. Their weapons are powerful, but our mineral-based energy system is stronger. The consortium ships fired again and again. Each time the shield absorbed the attack. After 30 minutes of continuous bombardment, they stopped. Now they'll try to land troops, Frank predicted. They won't believe they can't break through until they see it up close. He was right. Soon the sensors showed smaller ships leaving. The consortium fleet. Transport vessels carrying soldiers headed toward the smallest human settlement on the western continent. Eric, Steve called over the communication system. They're coming your way. Eric Walsh was in charge of the western settlement's defense. Like all humans who had lived on Terminus for years, he was stronger and faster than any human from Earth had ever been. His team was made up entirely of people born on Terminus, young men and women who had never known Earth's gentle gravity and mild weather. We're ready, Eric replied. Time to show them what Terminus humans can do. The consortium landing force touched down 2 miles from the western settlement. 300 alien soldiers in combat armor moved toward the human buildings. They expected to find weak survivors desperate to surrender. Instead, they found Eric and his team waiting for them. The battle was short but fierce. The consortium soldiers had better weapons and armor, but they moved slowly in Terminus's heavy gravity. The humans born on this world ran across the rocky ground like it was a smooth track. They were faster, stronger, and completely adapted to conditions that exhausted the aliens within minutes. Eric's team used simple weapons enhanced with the special minerals. Handheld guns fired energy bolts that cut through the aliens' armor with ease. The consortium soldiers fell back in confusion and fear. What are these creatures? One alien commander was heard shouting over their communication channel. These cannot be humans, but they were humans, just not the same humans that the consortium had exiled 20 years before. They were the next step in human evolution, forged by the brutal conditions of Terminus. After losing more than half their landing force, the consortium soldiers retreated to their ships and returned to the fleet in orbit. Now, Frank, Steve ordered, over the communication system. Deep in the mountain hangars, the hidden doors opened. 30 sleek ships built by human hands rose into the sky. Their engines glowed with the blue light of the special minerals that powered them. Frank Gordon led the fleet from the first ship, with Olivia Patel as his second in command. All ships, follow attack pattern Delta, Frank ordered. Remember your training. These are the people who sent our parents here to die. Today we show them that humans don't die easily. The consortium fleet was caught completely by surprise. They had no idea humans had built ships, let alone ships powered by the rare minerals. The human vessels were smaller but faster, darting around the larger consortium warships like bees around bears. The weapons on the human ships fired beams of blue-white energy. The special minerals gave them power that ordinary weapons couldn't match. Consortium shields failed under the assault. 2 of their ships were disabled in the first attack run. How is this possible? The consortium commander demanded over an open channel. You were sent here with nothing. You should all be dead. You gave us the one thing humans have always needed, Frank replied as his ships continued their attack. A challenge we couldn't walk away from. The space battle lasted 3 hours. By the end, 3 consortium ships had been destroyed. 2 were captured intact, and the remaining 3 retreated from the system, jumping away to report what they had found. On Terminus, The settlements celebrated their victory. But the leaders knew this was just the beginning. "They'll be back," Steve said during the council meeting, "and in greater numbers." "Then we'll be ready," Nicole replied. "We have 6 months at most before they return. By then we'll have more ships, better weapons, and something else," Tyler added. "The ships we captured have star maps and jump drive technology. We can reach other systems now." Paul studied the captured data carefully. "There are 3 other worlds marked as uninhabitable due to extreme conditions within our reach. Worlds like Terminus." Steve smiled slowly. "Worlds where humans would thrive." Over the next 6 months, the humans of Terminus worked harder than ever before. They built more ships, improved their weapons, and sent small teams to the other death worlds to establish bases. Using the captured consortium technology combined with their special mineral power sources, they prepared for the next confrontation. When the consortium returned, they brought a fleet of 50 ships. They expected a desperate fight against a small force of human vessels. Instead, they found over 100 human ships waiting for them in perfect formation. The human fleet had grown and improved. Each ship now carried weapons that could match any consortium vessel. Before the consortium fleet could attack, they received a transmission from the lead human ship. On the screen appeared an older man whom some of the alien leaders recognized. "I am Jason Reed, elected leader of what we now call the Terminus Federation," he said calmly. "We offer you a choice. Recognize us as a sovereign power and grant us full membership in the Galactic Consortium, or face a war you cannot win." "Impossible," the consortium admiral replied. "You are just one small colony on one harsh world." Jason smiled. "Actually, we now have settlements on 4 death worlds, as you call them, and we're expanding to more. Each one makes us stronger. You exiled us thinking we would die out. Instead, you created something new, a humanity adapted to thrive where no one else can." The consortium fleet held position, unwilling to attack but also unwilling to retreat. "Consider this," Jason continued. "There are thousands of worlds you consider too dangerous to colonize. Worlds with resources you can't reach. We can live on those worlds. We can mine those resources. We can be valuable allies or unstoppable enemies. The choice is yours." 3 days later, the Consortium High Council met in emergency session. The human delegation was led by John Carter, now elderly but still proud. He stood in the same chamber where, 20 years earlier, he had heard humanity's sentence of exile. As the consortium leaders signed the treaty recognizing the Terminus Federation and granting humans full membership rights, the blue-skinned alien, Zarvex, approached John. "In our attempt to contain humanity," Zarvex said quietly, "we forged you into something magnificent. Perhaps that was your destiny all along." John looked at the young Terminus-born humans in his delegation, taller, stronger, and more confident than any Earth human had ever been. "No," he replied. "You just gave us a push in the right direction. The rest we did ourselves. That's what humans have always done best." 10 years had passed since the Terminus Federation gained recognition from the Galactic Consortium. What had begun as a desperate exile had transformed into one of the fastest-growing powers in the galaxy. Terminus itself had changed. The once barren landscape now featured 3 major cities, connected by transport tubes that ran through mountains and across plains. The storms still raged, and the predators still hunted, but humans had made this harsh world truly their home. Peter Collins stood at the observation deck of Skyreach Tower, the tallest building on Terminus. At 32, he had been born just after the first humans arrived. He had never known Earth except through stories. His body was a product of Terminus, tall, powerful, with dense bones and muscles adapted to the high gravity. "Governor Reed is ready for you," said an aide at his side. Peter nodded and turned from the view. As head of the expansion division, he reported directly to Jason Reed, who had led the Terminus Federation since its formation. The governor's office was simple but elegant. Jason Reed had aged well, his face lined but his eyes still sharp. At EI, his side stood Zilnar, who had become humanity's first alien citizen and served as ambassador to the consortium. "The survey reports are in," Peter said after greetings were exchanged. "The fifth Deathworld is even more promising than we hoped. Higher gravity than Terminus, more extreme weather patterns, but incredibly rich in resources." "Native life forms?" Jason asked. "Several predator species that would challenge even Terminus-born humans, but nothing we can't handle with proper preparation." Jason smiled. "Draft a settlement plan. I want our first colonists there within 6 months." After Peter left, Jason turned to Zilnar. "The consortium representatives are waiting, aren't they?" "Yes," Zilnar confirmed. "They seem nervous." "They should be," Jason said. "Let's not keep them waiting." In the main conference room, 5 alien representatives from the most powerful consortium worlds sat around a large table. They rose when Jason entered, a sign of respect that would have been unthinkable a decade earlier. "Governor Reed," said the lead representative, a tall insect-like, being named Krasvek, "we come with concerns from the High Council." "I imagine you do," Jason said calmly, taking his seat. "Your mining corporations are losing profits because the Terminus Federation now controls access to 5 of the most resource-rich worlds in this sector." The aliens exchanged glances. "Your expansion rate is concerning," Krasvek continued. "No species has ever claimed so many worlds so quickly. No species was ever foolish enough to exile humans to a world that would make them stronger," Jason replied. "You gave us the perfect testing ground to evolve into something new." One of the other aliens leaned forward. "The worlds you claim are all classified as uninhabitable death zones. No reasonable species would want them." "Which is precisely why they're perfect for us," Jason said. "Your mistake was thinking that what kills you would kill us too. Humans adapt. We always have." The meeting continued with discussions of trade agreements, mining rights, and territorial boundaries. The consortium representatives tried to limit human expansion, but they had little leverage. The Terminus Federation now controlled resources that the consortium desperately needed. After the meeting, Jason met with Laura Chen, head of the Federation's science division. Unlike Peter, Laura had been born on Earth and exiled as a young scientist. She had aged on Terminus, but the planet had changed her too, making her stronger and more resilient than she would have been on Earth. "The new generation is ready for testing," Laura reported, bringing up holographic images of young men and women in training facilities. "These are all third-generation Terminus-born. Their physical capabilities exceed even second-generation by almost 20%. "And the special projects?" Jason asked. Laura's eyes gleamed with excitement. "The mineral-based enhancements are working better than we hoped. Volunteers show a 40% increase in strength and reaction time. With these treatments, even first-generation colonists like me can approach the capabilities of Terminus-born. Any side effects?" "None so far. The minerals seem to work in harmony with human biology in ways we're still trying to understand. It's as if we were always meant to find them." That evening, at a celebration marking the 10th anniversary of Federation recognition, citizens gathered in the central plaza of New Hope City. The storm shields held back the constant winds, creating a peaceful space in the heart of this harsh world. Peter watched as young children played games that would have been impossible for Earth humans, lifting weights that would challenge professional athletes, running at speeds that would break Olympic records. They were the future of humanity, and they had never known limitation. "Quite a sight, isn't it?" said a voice beside him. Peter turned to see John Carter, one of the original exiles and now an elder statesman of the Federation. "I can't imagine what it was like before," Peter admitted. "To be so fragile." John smiled. "We didn't think of ourselves as fragile then, but looking back we were like children playing at being strong." He gestured to the celebration around them. "This is what humanity can become when truly challenged. Not just physically stronger, but more unified, more focused." "The consortium still fears us," Peter said. "As they should," John replied. "But fear can lead to respect and respect to partnership. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We just want our place in it." Across the plaza, A group of alien visitors watched the celebrations with wide eyes. Tourism from consortium worlds had begun recently, brave souls who wanted to see the famous Deathworld and its remarkable inhabitants. They stayed in special lower-gravity facilities and never ventured outside protected areas, but they came in growing numbers. "They think we're like a zoo exhibit," Peter observed, nodding toward the aliens. "Today's tourists become tomorrow's allies," John said. "Every visitor who returns home with stories of what we've built here helps change the galaxy's perception of humans." Later that night, after the celebrations, Jason Reed met with his inner council. Representatives from all 5 human worlds attended either in person or via hologram. "The consortium is pushing back against our claim to the 6th Deathworld," Jason informed them. "They've suddenly decided it has cultural significance to one of their member species." "Convenient timing," Laura said. "Right after our survey showed it has the largest deposits of rare minerals in the sector. What do you want to do?" asked Kevin Morgan, governor of the 2nd human world, a planet of constant electrical storms that humans had named Franklin. Jason looked around at his council, men and women who had either survived exile or been born under the harshest conditions imaginable. They were the product of humanity's greatest crisis and greatest triumph. "We'll send a diplomatic mission first, of course," Jason said. "Offer fair terms, resource-sharing agreements, the usual approach." He paused, a slight smile on his face. "But make sure the Pathfinder fleet is ready to move if diplomacy fails." The council members nodded in agreement. Humans had learned many lessons during their time on Terminus. They had learned to survive, to adapt, to build, and to thrive. But perhaps the most important lesson was that the galaxy would never again underestimate them. As the meeting ended, Jason stepped onto his private balcony and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth continued its slow orbit around an average yellow sun, the homeworld that humanity had been forced to leave behind. "They thought they were punishing us," he said softly to himself. "Instead, they set us free." The constant storms of Terminus howled beyond the city's shields, a reminder of the harsh world that had forged humanity into something new, something stronger, something unstoppable.